Welcome to the deep dive. We love tackling those really big, almost overwhelming questions humanity asks itself.
The ones that keep you up at night.
Exactly. And today, it's one that feels, well, right out there, but also deeply important. If we ever actually meet an alien civilization, how on earth would we talk to them?
Or maybe how not on Earth.
Good point. So for this deep dive, we've gathered, well, quite a stack of material. We've got philosophical texts, some really dense linguistic research, astrobiology studies, even some recent AI papers.
Quite the mix.
It is. And our goal really is to cut through maybe the more sci-fi speculation and get to what the experts, the researchers, are truly grappling with. Sort of a shortcut for you to the heart of this massive question.
And it's fascinating because this isn't just about cool alien concepts from movies. Thinking about this stuff, it forces us to question what we even mean by language, by communication, even intelligence.
It turns the mirror back on us, in a way.
Completely.
Yeah.
Makes us look inward as much as outward.
Okay, so diving in, the first thing we hit is this kind of paradox, right? Mm-hmm. Human language. It's amazing. It's built everything around us.
Our greatest achievement, arguably.
For sure.
Yeah.
We use it for cooperation, for art, for love, for complaining online. But that very power might be, well, our biggest stumbling block when it comes to aliens.
Because it's human language.
Right. It evolved for very specific, very human needs. Survival in our environment, social bonding, gossip.
Which leads straight to this idea of, well, how anthropocentric our whole view of language is. Centered on us. Like, think about Noam Chomsky's universal grammar idea from back in the 60s. Super influential for understanding human language.
Yeah, the idea that there's some innate structure hardwired in our brains.
Exactly. But even that assumes a certain kind of thinking. It assumes cognition that's, linear, symbolic.
Words following words.
Right, and tied to specific things like sounds we make or gestures we use. It's language for us, built by us.
So, okay, let's push that. What if you have a species that, I don't know, communicates using patterns of light? Or maybe shifting magnetic fields?
Or even like manipulating quantum states somehow. Far out, I know, but...
But yeah, how would our idea of a word even map onto that? Or a sentence? Or even just thinking one thought after another?
Does sequential thought even make sense if you perceive time differently?
Whoa, yeah. It really forces you to think about how much our own biology, our eyes, our ears, our brains, locks us into our way of communicating. Can we, escape that box?
Well, that's the billion-dollar question, isn't it? And it's exactly what people in astrobiology and SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, are wrestling with.
So they are thinking about this practically?
Oh, absolutely. There are projects like meaty messaging extraterrestrial intelligence. These are actual attempts to design messages we could send out.
What do they put in them? Like a cosmic mixtape?
Not quite. They tend to focus on things we think might be universal. The language of math, physics, basic logic. The idea is to find some common ground, some shared reality.
Okay, that makes sense. Find the objective truths. But even math, are we sure that's universal?
Well, that's the debate, isn't it?
Like our whole decimal system base 10. It's because we have, well, look down, 10 fingers and thumbs.
Right. Biological accident, essentially.
So what if you meet aliens who evolved with, say, 3 limbs with manipulators? Maybe they use base 6. Would 2 + 2 = 4 even look the same or be the fundamental starting point?
It might not be obvious, no. Our universal truths might be surprisingly local, grounded in our specific bodies and planet.
It's kind of unsettling.
It is. And that leads perfectly into this idea from linguist Dr. Sherry Wells Jensen. She talks about needing radical cognitive empathy.
Radical cognitive empathy, what does that mean exactly?
It means essentially throwing out the assumption that our way of thinking, our mental processes, are any kind of reliable guide at all for understanding an alien mind.
So stop trying to fit them into our mental boxes.
Completely. It's not just about translating their language. It might be about fundamentally restructuring how we even conceive of thought or meaning. It's a huge leap.
Okay, wow. So practically speaking, if we can't just assume they think like us, what do? The sources mention machine learning.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit daunting. The idea is we might need incredibly sophisticated AI, maybe machine learning systems far beyond what we have now.
Not just a universal translator like in Star Trek.
Not even close. These systems wouldn't learn from sentences because we might not even recognize their sentences. They'd need to be trained on just vast amounts of observation, decades, maybe centuries, of watching their behavior, seeing patterns, cause and effect loops.
Trying to infer the rules from just watching.
Exactly. Think about how hard it is for us to truly understand dolphin clicks or complex bird calls. Now, scale that complexity up. Well, the sources say millions of times more complex.
Millions. How do you even gather that data? You'd need peaceful, long-term observation.
That's one of the massive hurdles, yes.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit, maybe get a little more speculative, but still, based on the research we looked at, what if alien communication isn't words or symbols at all? What if it's more like something you feel or directly experience?
Right. Imagine, say, a species that exists as a kind of distributed consciousness, like a hive mind. Maybe they communicate through harmonic resonance or subtle chemical signals across a colony.
Not sending messages, but being the message almost.
In a way, yeah. In cases like that, translation as we know it might be impossible. It wouldn't be about swapping words. It would be, well, the term used is experiential.
Experiential communication, like what?
Think about concepts like shared simulated environments or neurosymbolic exchanges. These are ideas where maybe emotions, complex concepts, even memories aren't described. They're directly transmitted, experienced.
So instead of saying, I feel warm, they somehow make you feel the warmth.
Precisely. One example given was a message that is the feeling of warmth after emerging from darkness. It's not a description of the feeling. It is the feeling imparted directly.
That's hard to wrap my head around. It bypasses language entirely.
It does, and that ties into another really wild idea, semiotic inversion.
Semiotic inversion.
The usual idea, semiotics, is that meaning is encoded in a sign or symbol. A word stands for a thing. Semiotic inversion flips that. It suggests meaning might not be encoded at all, but directly embodied.
Embodied. How?
Like, the meaning isn't in the message. The meaning is the message's existence or form. Maybe an alien communicates by creating a complex physical structure, and the meaning is inherent in that structure and its relationship to its environment. Or maybe it's a state of being they induce. Meaning isn't said, it just is.
Wow. Okay, so if that's true, the implication is kind of staggering. It means sending a dictionary or a plaque on a probe is pointless.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
For that kind of communication, it might mean, and this is really out there, that to truly communicate, we couldn't just send a message. We might need to send ourselves, or at least our consciousness, our minds, maybe via something like quantum entanglement or uploading into a shared simulation.
Sending our minds across the stars to have a conversation. The existential weight of that is enormous.
It really is. But thinking about these extreme possibilities helps us appreciate the scale of the challenge and maybe brings us back to more grounded approaches for now, like AI.
Right, artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
How does that fit into maybe the more immediate first contact scenario?
Well, it seems pretty crucial, honestly. We've seen systems like Google's DeepMind or the models from OpenAI. They've shown this incredible ability to learn abstract rules and find patterns in absolutely massive data sets, data that humans can never process.
Like learning Go or protein folding.
Exactly. So imagine training a next-generation AI, something far more powerful, not on human text, but on years of passive SETI data radio signals, atmospheric readings from exoplanets, whatever telemetry we can gather.
It could spot patterns we're completely blind to. Find the language hidden in the noise.
That's the hope. It might be able to infer grammatical rules, conceptual relationships, semantic structures that are just completely alien to human intuition.
And there's a connection to cognitive science here too, right? This idea of convergent properties.
Yes, that's a really hopeful concept, actually. The basic idea is that certain features of intelligence might arise independently in any complex system that needs to survive and make sense of its environment.
Like any intelligent species, no matter how different, might eventually need to develop things like abstract thought, pattern recognition, maybe even representing cause and effect.
Probably. To navigate reality effectively, you likely need some way to model it abstractly. So even if the form of alien language is utterly bizarre, there might still be underlying logical structures, ways of organizing information that are somewhat analogous to ours, things an AI could potentially map onto.
So there might be some shared foundation, however deep it's buried.
It's a possibility. It gives us a thread of hope that communication isn't necessarily impossible, just incredibly difficult. But
there's always a but.
There's always a but. The sources also point to the really tough scenarios. The ultimate catch.
Okay, what's the worst case for communication?
Well, what if a species became intelligent before developing language as we conceive it? Maybe they operate on pure instinctual understanding or direct telepathy from the get-go.
No symbols needed.
Or what if they communicate by literally physically merging consciousnesses temporarily? There's no signal to intercept. Or what if they exist in dimensions where time flows differently or isn't linear? Our whole concept of sending a message now to be received later breaks down.
How could we possibly distinguish their communication from just the background physics of the universe in those cases?
Exactly. It might be happening all around us constantly, and we lack the senses, the concepts, the fundamental understanding, even to recognize it as communication. It could just seem like weird noise or nothing at all.
So when we listen out there into the cosmos and we hear mostly silence,
That silence might not mean emptiness.
it might just mean we haven't learned how to listen correctly yet. We don't understand the language of the void, as it were.
It's a profoundly challenging thought, but also kind of hopeful. It suggests the conversation might still be waiting to happen.
How do you see it breaking then, that silence?
Well, maybe it will be through incredibly advanced AI, as we discussed, or maybe through developing that radical cognitive empathy to an unbelievable degree, or maybe just sheer luck and persistent mutual curiosity if we ever make contact. But one way or another, the hope is the silence will eventually break.
And when that contact finally happens, if it happens, it really drives home that this isn't just going to be about cracking a code or translating words.
No, not at all.
It's going to be about understanding thought itself
Yeah.
in a form we can barely imagine. It feels like
Well, the absolute edge of human inquiry.
it really is, pushing the boundaries of everything we think we know. So if this deep dive has stretched your brain a bit today, keep listening to that void. Keep thinking about these huge questions. And maybe share this deep dive with someone else who likes to explore the really big ideas.